What's up? Welcome to a new episode. A new episode. It's been a little while, but we're back with a Marvel Schmarvel episode, a special side project of the Movie Schmovie podcast, exclusive only here on YouTube, youtube.com/movie schmovie. We are back today to go over a couple news items that have come up since we last recorded, a couple trailers or a trailer that we want to talk about. A collection of posters that have come out that we want to talk about, and maybe just about maybe that movie in general and the fact that it just needs to get here.
You're suggesting there might be a movie connected to this series of trailers and this new collection of posters that we've seen?
Possibly.
Yes.
Possibly. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there might be. And then the main point of this episode is we're going to talk about the new Hulu series called M.O.D.O.K. From Jordan Blum and Patton Oswalt that comes out on what did we say it was the 21st?
21st, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the 21st.
Yeah. All 10 episodes are going to be dropping, which was, I guess, I don't know if we're going to put this out on a Saturday like we normally do, would be yesterday.
Yeah.
But if we're putting it out earlier in the week to get ahead of it, could be a few days from now.
We don't know when we're putting this out. I think putting it out early is kind of fun because it beats the rush, but we'll see. We'll see how things play out.
So we'll just say it's coming out soon.
Yeah.
Like it comes out soon or it came out recently.
It came out already because you're listening to this or you're watching this actually.
Either way, we're covering it.
Right.
I don't know. We're here to talk about it.
There's time travel on this
whenever
show,
it exists.
and there's time travel on that show too. So,
but yeah. So before we get to that series, as always, just like kind of hit off some news items real quick. We talked about this a little bit on our podcast for Movie Schmovie, in a little like trailer conversation, but it is a Marvel property. It is one of these in associations with Marvel Studios that Sony Pictures does. It's the sequel to Tom Hardy's Venom. This one's called Venom: Let There Be Carnage, directed by Andy Serkis, also starring Woody Harrelson as Carnage, basically. What do you guys think of this trailer? What's going on here?
I'm ready. It's a fun looking film. I really enjoyed the first one. I'm ready. I feel like we need something that feels a little off the rails. I mean, no disrespect to anything that the Mouse House does with Disney, does with Marvel, but it feels a little contained. It feels a little safe, and sometimes they get a little crazy.
Right.
But nothing as crazy as Venom or Carnage,
Sure.
Nothing, no body, no body horror or anything like that. And I really love what they did with the first one. It's a fun ride, man. Like whenever I put it on, I forget, and then I remember how fun I had with it, how much fun I had with it when I saw it. So I've watched it like 3 or 4 times at this point.
It's like a weird movie. Like I too liked it. It is fun, but it does feel like some weird mishmash of like the 90s, early aughts comic book attempts at movies.
Yes,
and like does. The tone of it is kind of all over the place like those were. But yet they're still trying to create some sort of universe in this Sony Marvel universe that could maybe or maybe won't cross into the MCU at some point. But the idea that, this is like a co-op deal with Marvel Studios and with them and Sony, and the deal that they have in place for Spider-Man and how all that works, their little spider world or Spider-Verse that they're trying to create with all of their properties that they're putting out, including Spider-Verse. It's just interesting to see, like you said, the tone of this movie feeling pretty considerably different than like what the MCU movies feel like, which is a good change, I think, and the idea of it just looking really fun and kind of like out there, which is what the first one was as well, is a change of pace. And I think maybe not a bad thing, like we haven't seen a Marvel movie in 2 years almost. It'll be almost 2 years, or a year and a half, 2 years by the time Black Widow comes out.
Yeah.
And then, this comes out in September. It's just, what a weird feeling that will be to see, Black Widow and then to see this movie, which feel like they couldn't be more different in ways. But I don't know. I think it looks a lot of fun too. I mean, the trailer is really, really great. And I think the Carnage looks awesome. I hope that he looks that awesome in the whole movie. because that's a really fun villain to have in a movie, and it'll be cool to see him and Venom together and kind of how they use elements of the comics. Is that's one little world I was a little more familiar with Venom and Carnage from the games and stuff like that I got into, and then going back to some of the comics to read some of those stories. So I'd be curious to see what that looks like on the screen and what they do with that. But
yeah, someone who didn't see the first Venom but has kind of always intended to catch it at some point. This trailer, I mean, I loved this trailer. I watched it 2 or 3 times. Like when I first saw it, I was just like, I got to see that again. Yeah. And I watched a couple more times, and then I showed it to Henry when he came around because I knew he liked my son. You know, I knew he liked the first one. So I don't know. Yeah, even as someone who didn't have that sort of association with the first one, this just looked like this cinched the deal for me in a way that wasn't a guaranteed thing at all. But it just looks like knowingly kind of crazy and a little freaky and a little willingly kind of horrific, you know. I mean, there's something about these characters that is just inherently sort of unpleasant. And it's like they're making that kind of a fun part of it, rather than going like the body horror aspect of these movies could be just gross and unsettling, but the fact that they're getting jokes out of it, like just even the bit in the trailer with how he's now interacting, or he's seemingly trying to live with this symbiote in his life. And you know, it's physical comedy. So I'm in.
And when you think physical comedy, you definitely think Tom Hardy, right?
You definitely think that live
every
wire
time.
Tom Hardy.
And when I think about American accents, first pick Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy.
Why are you adoring Red?
That's 2 check boxes right there.
2 things that won't work in another context. It's true that there's just something about his. Well, you know, and I've told you guys, like we love Tom Hardy. He's one of our guys. But yeah, Capone. He's got to wash off the stink of Capone. So if this movie what was the name of that movie? Was it just called Capone?
Yeah. Was it called Capone? Yeah. I think it was just called Capone.
Yeah, Capone. Josh Trank.
Yeah, good old Josh Trank. But you know, this is his chance. This is his chance to mumble and be strange in a different movie that is more enjoyable than Capone. If you know, that's a good low bar actually. Is this movie going to be more fun than Capone? I think already the trailer.
Yeah,
done.
It already won. Punch.
Yeah. It already won. The other thing we wanted to mention here at the beginning, I just mentioned it briefly, but Black Widow coming out in July. In theaters and Disney Plus Premiere access. Ronald, you mentioned before we started recording that they released some new character posters, which I know you downloaded every single one. You saved them into a folder.
Every single one.
Black Widow 2021, and it's one where you've crossed out the dates of when it was supposed to come out, and you have the new date.
Just like you've done with all of their marketing materials, you won't stop saying, guys, I can't wait for this movie.
I'm hoarding
this is
it.
my film. This is what you keep saying. This is my film.
Yeah.
This one's for me.
Yeah.
This is a movie that just it just feels like it's like, and it's so weird to say it, but like obviously I want to see this. I'm going to see this, but it just feels like it's limping
on a certain
level. Out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're everything they can throw out there to get this movie out in terms of marketing. It's like you said, like 6 or 8 or whatever it was, character posters of, you know, we don't even really know anything about these characters, and it's like we need the posters, you know.
Well, I mean, how many trailers? It's one of the few movies too where you can look up final trailer and there's like 5 final trailers. And they're really having to come up with new ways of packaging the same footage to us too. Like every now and then there's a new shot in there. And I mean, in a weird way, I feel bad for it because there was a point where I saw that first trailer for this and I was like, well, this looks kind of fun. I can see this being kind of cool. So and it's not like it looks bad. It's just, as we've said, there's something about this movie that feels like they've got to get it out and get past it. And then not like never speak of it again, but just please don't make another trailer. My thought is they're going to put this movie out and then the next month they're going to put out another trailer for it. They're just going to keep going.
Like, oh, we forgot we had this one. we forgot to release this one. We gave it to Ronald and he kept it too long. We were supposed to put this out.
I'm just hoarding it, man.
Ronald, put these darn trailers out.
We asked him to post it and he didn't.
What's even weirder is they're introducing people that we as American audiences just don't even know. Like I only know because I'm a big fan of the show Max, but I'm not even going to try to butcher his last name. But I mean, I don't know whether you guys know this or not, but he's supposed to be surprisingly Taskmaster or something like that. And
Taskmaster's a cool American audience, so that could be really cool.
American audiences aren't familiar with this actor, so it's just him with the Black Widow X or whatever the red logo is, and you're just like, hey, who is this man I've never seen in my life?
Why is the guy from Handmaid's Tale in Black Widow?
Yes,
That's where most people know him from, I think, more than Max.
Right. So it's interesting, and just it needs to come out. They're getting desperate. They're just kind of pulling at straws at this point to put something out. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Do you think they're holding back some big surprise in this movie? I mean, something is one of the reasons why the trailers seem so bland is because they did the Marvel thing of like selling you on it's Marvel and it's a name, and you see the cast and you see the interactions and you go, I don't need to know anything about the plot, and they're not going to tell me anything about like the second or third act of this movie because they want to keep it. I mean, you guys are nodding, so I guess
I hope so. Yeah, I'm saying yes.
But I mean, I think they are. I kind of wonder if that's a problem, is that we've seen 6 trailers and 8 posters, and we don't give a shit about Taskmaster yet. We don't really know her family individuals yet, and it's like normally that wouldn't be a problem because they do that not quite mystery box thing, but they do that thing of only revealing what they need to kind of tell you what the movie might be. Right. But at this point, it feels like, wow, we've been living on that little sliver or two of information for a long time with this thing. And it kind of feels like it has to have something up its sleeve. Otherwise, it will feel like an also ran. Maybe if it's just a really competent action movie, though, we'll get swept away and we'll have fun. But I do feel like there's something they're teasing or something they need. This movie is, teeing up that we can't know yet what it is.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. Oh, I wanted to ask you guys, did you hear what Emily Blunt said about the casting of her and John Krasinski for Fantastic Four, that they have not been contacted by Marvel Studios?
I believe that as much as I believe Andrew Garfield denying having been contacted about being in Spider-Man 3.
So you don't believe that at all? Okay.
I don't.
Interesting.
I believe that she's a great actress.
I like.
And they were this close to her with Captain Marvel, or at least she got pretty far down that process. In fact, she was kind of my favorite person for that part. So yeah, I would think a lot of those people who those. It seems like a lot of those people that Marvel deals with, they keep them. You know what I mean? There's that, like, oh, that's what they were talking to them about.
And he was a finalist for Captain America too.
Yeah.
He was almost Captain America. So it's like, I don't know. I do think she's right that is like dream casting. Like people have been talking about that forever.
Right.
So, it to come to fruition may not be in the cards, but I don't believe for a second that there have not been conversations about this happening for, about can we make it happen for like, a long time.
Right.
Like John said, especially because like she was almost another major character in the MCU and it didn't happen.
And her star's kind of only risen since then.
Right, exactly. And then together they have, like, like Ronald mentioned on an episode of our podcast, like last week, Krasinski just signed a deal with Paramount, like a first look deal with them. So, I mean, like, their stars are way in the sky. Like they're up there. So they're big names now. People love them. And it'd be cool to see them as those characters. I don't know that is what will happen. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that she's not interested in doing it. I don't know her personally. I don't mean to say that I do, but I do believe that she's a great actress. And if they had talked to her,
who hang out with her,
if they had talked to her, I don't think she would lead on that they had at all.
Right? No.
Did you see the interview with Andrew Garfield that Josh Horowitz did?
Yeah.
Where he basically was saying like he hadn't been contacted about it, and
but then he said not in this universe, and he winked, and so I don't know. No, he didn't say that.
But same conversation though, we're like, I don't believe that for a second, like at all. Like that is bullshit. Like they're gonna be in that Spider-Man movie.
Well, how many times has a person done a good job of like acting, not just saying no comment, but saying like nothing about that's going on, and then like the next day or two there's an announcement, and it's like that was that was them lying. Like there's a difference between sort of avoiding the question and lying. And I don't really give a shit about this stuff. Like people used to I remember I used to hear critics getting mad at like the creators of Lost for lying, or the writers of Game of Thrones for lying, when they have to keep suspense going between seasons. And it's like, they're not lying. They're just trying to keep you guessing. But no, I think that they like to announce these things, It reminds me of I don't know if you guys remember, was it last week when those pictures of Sebastian Stan as Tommy Lee for that show came out, that like I had read a couple things before that about him being on interviews that were like Zoom interviews and being really nervous about, or at least expressing that he was nervous about video images of himself leaking in before the official
I saw that. Yeah.
post was. But
Was that
like
Joanna Robinson saying that?
yeah, I think that might have been.
Yeah, I saw
But
that.
but the idea there that like these stars aren't always, they don't always have a lot of control over like anything that makes it easy for them to keep, like even Benedict Cumberbatch has been saying for months that like his face is a spoiler for Doctor Strange 2.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what, maybe I don't know if it's a fucking eye patch or if it's a I mean, I guess that's not his face, but I mean, is it a facial hair pattern? Like what could really be a spoiler, but maybe there is some crazy thing. So it's an odd thing to think of, like when these things are timed, because they like to get the maximum, especially the Marvel method is to like every little thing becomes an announcement, but there's usually a flurry of them. So I wonder, I think it'll be a long time before there's any final announcement on some of these yet to be announced movies, but the big four at the end of the presentation of Phase 4 thing, that was definitely a Fantastic Four that
logo. Yeah.
And so, I mean, do you think we're going to get just a crazy announcement at some point of who's in that, and it's just going to be
I hope so.
It's just going to be boom, here it is.
Well, we said this before, like on we did a conversation about that teaser reel that they did for Phase 4 on our Movie Schmovie podcast, but like that is a lot of stuff that they normally put into the world at a convention, a massively publicized convention, and they work that angle for weeks coming out of that stuff, and this is something different for them, and this is a different life that we're living right now. So I mean, I think that there are definitely things that they're going to hold on to, both casting announcements, people that are going to be in these movies, what these movies will be about, and also possibly another movie or two in Phase 4 that they didn't even announce yet. I think that that's still in the cards. I think that there's going to still be a couple big announcements that they're going to have, in the next 6 months or so, if they have some sort of platform like that, whether it's a Comic-Con or a D23, some sort of Disney thing. But I do think that they're going to still have some pretty big announcements, and I think that'll probably be the biggest one of them.
Yeah, the fact that the best version of Fantastic Four that we can watch right now is a 1994 cartoon that's on Disney Plus. That's a problem. we need a new version of Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into M.O.D.O.K. One of you guys can drive this. I mean, admittedly, I didn't know anything about this character before watching this series. When you said that it was a series, I had no awareness of it beyond an interview that I heard with Patton Oswalt, where he was promoting it or really excited about it coming out. And that was like about a year plus ago that he was talking about that. So why don't one of you, maybe Rana, why don't you kind of like set this up, jump us into this, and we can kind of get into talking about the new Hulu series.
So M.O.D.O.K is not a character I'm super familiar with. I do know that his name is, the acronym of his name is Mental Organism Designed Only for Killing, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
He I think I saw him a couple times in comics, but associated with Iron Man a couple times. But in terms of just knowledge of this character, he feels like he's kind of in the like early 90s was when I remember seeing him the most. But I honestly hadn't seen him since. So when this popped up, I was very interested. I saw that it was the stop motion animation made very popular in Robot Chicken. So that's really my experience with M.O.D.O.K. So what about you, John?
I mean, I would say similarly, he kind of predated me as far as like I'm looking to see when he first came out. Yeah, it was 67 is when he popped up. He was one of those kind of old school villains. If you know Jack Kirby's style, Jack Kirby was the guy that created him. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created him together, which probably means Jack Kirby created him and Stan Lee, said he co-created him. But if you look at Jack Kirby's drawing style and you look at like an early drawing of M.O.D.O.K, you will see the kind of chunky, like his design they've done lots, different artists have drawn him in different ways, but the fundamental aspects of his design, it feels to me very linked to the Jack Kirby drawing style, which is this kind of chunky, squared off. He's got like a wide face. There's something kind of funny about him. Like even when I was a kid, I was like, oh, he's the guy that's a big floating head in like a hover chair, and he's got these little arms and legs sticking out that are sort of like normal sized, but they're small for his head, you know. And he just always seemed to me like, I never saw the stories where he would have been the villain that was like, oh, he's this badass villain. I always saw him kind of treated like a little bit of a joke, or maybe like the villain who they would just refer to, or he would pop up. And I don't know. I don't have like an idea in my head of like a classic M.O.D.O.K story. I think it's more about the look, the name, as you said, the mental organism designed only for killing. These things just feel like vestiges of that early days of comics, but there's something kind of strange and like really bizarre about him that feels like had they ever done him for one of the MCU movies, you could see them going that far and saying, we're going to bring this kind of crazy character in. But
Right.
and even years ago, people talked about Patton Oswalt for this role, and it's like it's believable that the MCU would live action cast Patton Oswalt to play M.O.D.O.K for a movie. But when you heard this is how they were doing it, it kind of made more sense. Like there's a lot of Marvel stuff that you can play with a little bit more, and I like the way that this feels like it's like Deadpool or something like that. It's in the margins of the Marvel universe. It's not really trying to say it's not the MCU. They've said as much that it's not officially the MCU, but we're about to get into multiverses, so you could believe this is some alternate world. But it just kind of is like, it fits as it's a cartoon. I think the fact that he was always, and they made an action figure of him too that was kind of like, you could imagine being like the action figure you would hope not to get, that maybe your grandmother would give you or something for Christmas, not knowing what characters you like. And I think the show kind of makes a little bit of a joke out of that too, that he would not have been a popular character and he would not have been a well-liked character. And there's something kind of funny about that I think that even in the comics they've known for years that M.O.D.O.K is kind of not a loser, but there is something kind of, there's just the amusing factor. Like you kind of, even in comics, it's like he's a guy with a big head who floats around shooting a laser out of his forehead. There's just something about that does feel sort of silly. And of course, this show is a flat out comedy satire show, so it fully embraces the silliness and kind of blows on past that. But it's a constant source of humor for the show, or at least it's one of the jokes they lean on, is like just what a strange being he is. And Patton Oswalt, I think, voice acting wise, he's a great voice actor. He's a great deliverer of jokes. There's something kind of perfect about his voice with that little character. I don't know. What did you guys think of the show, the tone? I would say just up front, Robot Chicken tone wise has never been my absolute cup of tea. I've thought they do certain things that are funny. I've caught a couple things that I liked over the years, but I think that was a little hurdle I had to get over with this show. And I almost feel like the show kind of gets over that hurdle itself. Like as it trucks along, it sort of hashes out its own identity. It still has that sort of like quick little blasts of violence, lots of animal cruelty. There's just a sort of nasty tone, kind of a mean-spiritedness to the undercurrent of it that is not my favorite tone. Like I've never liked those things where it's like, oh, let's do Charlie Brown, but they're all grown up and they're mad, and Charlie Brown takes out a machine gun and guns everybody down. Like that sounds like a Robot Chicken sketch. I just don't need that kind of satire. But I do think they've tamed that nastiness a little bit. The tone of that feels more like they've reached towards that sort of Marvel, not family friendly, but just something a little more pleasant is the weird word for it, but maybe you guys can help me out with that. What do you guys think of that tone, and how did you feel about this show as a kind of extension of that Robot Chicken, that well-established tone?
That's the kindest way of saying this ain't it. This ain't it. This on any level is this. I think sometimes this is. I criticize what Disney does a lot of the times with their Marvel properties, and the way that Kevin Feige is like holds these properties to so close to his chest. But there is something about quality control that he can really see to. Maybe one day we can go into specifics of how Marvel actually like lays out their movies. Like they actually pre-visualize a lot of the stuff before they actually do it. So they can test it, so they can see, okay, we've actually have a CGI version of the scene. Let's see how it hits. Let's replace people. Let's put people over here. And sometimes with this sort of thing, you have to complete the whole thing to look at it and say, what is this overall? Does this feel good? Tonally, is this okay? And I think that it missed me on every level. Like, it wasn't funny to me. It wasn't interesting enough to keep my attention sometimes. But I really do like the idea of a Marvel property done in this way, and Patton Oswalt and some of the other people like Sam Richardson. I love all that, but this wasn't executed as
Benny
well as I
Schwartz.
would have thought. Yeah, Benny Schwartz. Would I ever suggest this to someone? No, I don't think I'd ever suggest it to anybody. And it feels bad because it's such a labor of love. This style of animation is such a labor of love that felt so flat to me that it was almost unbearable to get through the episodes.
Did you watch all 10?
I watched about 6 of them.
Okay. Steve, what did you think?
I kind of agree with Ronald. I think. I mean, I don't know. I definitely came around to the show probably in the last 3 episodes. So I would say Ronald maybe try to get through. But I think honestly, like everything you guys have said is basically what I was gonna say. Like, I think the robot chicken element of it was something I was never really into. Like, that kind of show, that kind of humor was never really my thing. I do like the animation. Like, I do like the way that they make these shows. I do find that interesting. I love Patton Oswalt. So there are glimpses in the show that I did really like. And I mean, like you guys just said, the voice cast is great. And yeah, anything that Ben Schwartz is doing is like, I'm okay with. But I don't know. It took too long for me to like come around on the show that, a show that's like, 30-minute, each episode is probably long enough for this kind of show per episode. And, I don't think it's a compliment to say that for me to really even start liking it until the 7th or 8th episode is not a good thing. In its defense, I mean, like, I do think the voice stuff is probably the where it shines through. I mean, the voice acting is pretty great. I really do like Patton Oswalt a lot. I just don't know that I care at all about learning or seeing any more about the character. I don't know, the way it ties into the world of Marvel that I know, not the MCU specifically, but characters that I'm aware of. It's kind of a part of the joke of the whole show, and that's fine, but it doesn't, I don't know, just outside of that, I don't think there's enough there for me to really be into the show. Enough to really know that I want another season. I know they haven't announced more of the show, but I don't know. The only thing that really got me, honestly, is like, I feel like the last like 15 minutes of the show of the season is actually pretty great. I think the way the kind of season wraps up is pretty awesome. But to say that was 15 minutes of 3 hours worth of a show, that's not good, I don't think. But I did find some of it pretty funny, though. I did find myself laughing at a handful of scenes pretty hard, but not consistently enough, and not enough that like really had anything to do with me caring about anybody in the show, or anybody in any of these characters at all. But I don't know. That feels really down for me because I usually I want to like stuff more than I don't. And more recently, I've been on a pretty good positive run, and liking things. And I didn't hate the show at all. Like, I made it through the episodes with no problem. I just think it sets me against it to begin with, that I wasn't familiar with it, that I was kind of like trying to learn more about it and see if it would like hook me. And I didn't have a head start on it because I was excited to see any of it to begin with, basically. And I don't think I really ever got to a point where I was like, oh man, I got to watch the next one. Oh, I got to watch the next one. It was more so became something of like, oh, that was a pretty funny scene. And then, oh, who's that doing that voice? Oh, I recognize that voice,
Yeah.
It became a lot of that, which is distracting for a show. It's not necessarily a good thing.
A lot of John Daly, who's somebody who I love.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind
Alan
of
Tudyk is on there as well. Yeah, no,
on it.
I think I might be right in line with you, Steve. That like there was one moment where I laughed out loud, like hard at something, and I realized I think that was in fourth or fifth episode or something. And I realized when that happened that was the first time I had laughed out loud, and I was like, oh, okay, that was a good laugh. But wow, this show is trying to make me laugh out loud more than that. So that was something that made me realize, okay, maybe it is, like you said, Ronald, when I texted you about it, you said everything is almost funny. I kind of felt like that about it. Like everything about it was almost enough. Everything about it was almost enough, and it was almost working. And again, for me, like I said, getting over that tone that I wasn't too crazy about the robot chicken thing. Like I can see that they upped the ante of their animation and their just the quality control. Like particularly M.O.D.O.K's face is like just an interesting sculpt, and the animation for it is good. And I think most of the other characters don't look quite as good. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we're just kind of, I'm right in the middle on this one. Like I didn't hate it either. And I also can't imagine saying to somebody, oh man, you got to see this. Like even my son was really curious when he found out that we had access to a whole season of something. And I was like, I'll watch it before I decide if it's appropriate for you. And then when I was watching it, I was like, well, beyond that question, I don't even want to say you should spend your time watching this necessarily. Like but that makes it sound like it's, I mean, there are so many things that you would watch that are worse than this. So it might hit your funny bone, and it might be just the thing that pulls you through. But I did find myself thinking like, this is just like, it just feels like there's something about it that could be clicking and really could be pulling me through with those voice actors, with the kind of magic of stop motion animation that we all like, that it could have been a more exciting. It's like, I can't quite picture what it would have been that it's not, but whatever that is better than better than what we got. And it's I guess to your point, Steve, I don't remember ever being at any point like sold and super excited about it to begin with. I was just like, oh, this sounds intriguing. And really, I like Patton Oswalt so much. And I thought the joke of him playing M.O.D.O.K was a funny one. And it felt like this is one of those, it's like John Hamm as Iron Man, but even more so Nathan Fillion showing up as Wonder Man. Like these things are like, oh, this is a little bit of that dream casting. It can happen on a different level than it being a big movie. And so I do think it occupies that spot. But yeah, not a home run by any means.
I do really love like the way it ended though. I think the more I talk about it, like I do like, I don't want to,
where the story, like where it leaves, the kind of cliffhanger almost of
the cliffhanger and kind of like how dark it goes. Like I do like that.
No, it owns up to the villainy of the character.
Exactly.
That is interesting, and not just the mean-spirited, easy way. Like there's a scene early in the season where he throws a bunny into like an electrified fence or something, and it's like, oh, haha, that's that robot chicken thing of like, oh, isn't that gross and mean? But the darkness you're talking about is an actual like character turn that feels more of a piece with a legit villain story.
Yeah, like a very egocentric, selfish villain, only hell-bent on, what he or she wants. But so I don't know. That really kind of, that would probably be one of the best things of the season for me, was like really kind of the fact that it did pivot towards that a little bit at the end. But maybe not enough of that in the season. I don't know. But
so Ronald, why don't you tell us what your new acronym for M.O.D.O.K is?
Let me look at how the spelling. Many other dedicated outside.
Okay, listening. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this to you.
Other things, you can watch other things.
Yeah.
Many other dedicated something.
Mediocre, or even I.
Or dumb, or good,
or campy with a K. I don't know. Yeah. I thought maybe that
this ain't it.
I'm sorry, I did. Yeah, this ain't it. That's the acronym. Whatever that is.
Just the show should be called "This Ain't It."
And that
I feel bad because I wanted to like it, man. I was like, let's watch this.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? It's fine. We don't have to like everything. We are coming to terms with this, right? And this is a session for us right now. Like you can see this in real time, like us acknowledging that, like, it's hard for us to be like, I didn't like it that much.
Yeah. I'm
very positive. We're very positive people, and we try to really go into wanting to like everything. It's just like something just didn't work with this for me, or for us. It sounds like in general.
Unfortunate.
Well,
You can watch all 10 episodes of M.O.D.O.K right now.
yeah. But that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like,
Yeah.
we say that, and there's going to be people who love this show.
No, there
so,
are.
I mean,
There
there's
definitely
going to
gonna
be an
be some.
audience that eats this show up. So, it may be the right kind of show for you. It may be the different kind of show that you want than the Disney Plus Marvel stuff, than the MCU stuff. It is different in that way. So that may be what you're looking for. And if it is, it's on Hulu. The whole season's available, 10 episodes. And I don't know if they plan on doing more seasons of it. At the time we're recording this, they haven't announced anything like that yet, but maybe they will. But again, it's on Hulu, first season, 10 episodes.
If you're like me, you'll laugh out loud twice. So that's not horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not great.
And I'm gonna finish it out.
I think you should.
Of them.
I think you should. I definitely laughed more than twice.
I think I laughed more than twice, but I'm talking about like one of those laughs where you actually go like,
yeah.
I did that twice.
Like
that was
wow.
yeah. See, or someone in the next room might be like, what?
What did you watch?
Yeah, what's so funny?
Yeah, what is this show?
Yeah, well, I had to get 5 episodes in, but
okay,
all right.
So yeah, that's I think. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to mention on this episode of Marvel Schmarvel before we wrap up? I guess between now, the next episode of this that we're probably going to be doing is I'm guessing for Loki, when that launches in June. But I don't know. What to put some. We gotta do a poll question when these come out, Ronald. So we got to come up with a good poll question for our Twitter followers, whether it's a M.O.D.O.K related or Loki related. Looking forward. But we'll come up with something. So follow us on Twitter. You can answer that.
By the way, Steve, and to the viewers, like a minute ago, Steve, when you were talking, I believe it was you. I was shaking my head. No, that was not because of what you were saying. It was because there was somebody trying to come down the steps with dogs into the basement. And I was trying to let them know. No, not yet.
You shooed them off.
No,
not now.
I did it with a head shake, but then I realized like that could seem, especially if someone was watching this, they'd be like, wow, Steve didn't even acknowledge. John was like going, no.
Shaking me off.
Yeah,
shaking me
no,
off.
No, he's wrong. You were probably right.
He was saying, no, it's not Loki. We're not going to be back for Loki.
Yeah, right. No, this was a while back. This was minutes ago. I was just wanting to forget to mention it. I wonder what Loki stands for.
Ronald?
Little old killer.
You're going to get stuck on that letter K again.
Yeah.
You just can't come up with words for K. That's it.
Kill is, this is a killer.
Kill.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It is. You're right.
It's hard.
But yeah, so we'll be back in a few weeks for Loki. We'll do that on a weekly basis, kind of hitting those season 1 episodes up as they air. And that show is going to come out on a Wednesday, not a Friday. So we'll have to figure that out and how we're going to do that, because that kind of is more in line with when we do our podcast, which is Movie Schmovie. You can find that at movieschmovie.com if you want to check out our podcast feed. But while you're here watching this on YouTube, because I'm assuming you are, because this is a YouTube only series, you should subscribe to this channel. You should like it, hit the bell, get the alerts, all that fun stuff, so that you know what we do when we do it and how you can watch it or listen to it. That'd be great. Thank you guys. So if you guys are good, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add. Did you come up with a better M.O.D.O.K acronym?
No.
That's probably what we should have on the poll. You come up with 4 or 5 different acronyms.
Yeah,
pick the best one.
What's your M.O.D.O.K acronym?
And that's what it is.
Right.
But we still have a horrible time closing these episodes out, or at least I feel like we do. So John came up with the way to sign off of these episodes. He's very proud of it.
I changed it to Schmake Schmine Schmarvel,
Officially, is that what it is?
Until next time.
Okay.
Until next time, Schmake Schmine Schmarvel.
Schmarvel. Okay.
Thank you guys for listening and watching. And I'm sorry, but we'll be back soon.
I think ending with an apology is really good.
Yeah, we're all